looks at it.
All right, our meeting is being live streamed. I got it. I think you have to get it. And I think that we should be going live. Sarah, I don't know if it's possible for you to pull up it says that we're live. We're live. It says it on my Facebook, so I know that we're live. Hola a todos, bienvenidas. Good afternoon and welcome. It's Trafficking Tuesday, which sounds like a heavy topic. And here's the deal. Human trafficking doesn't go away just because it's not Human Trafficking Awareness Month anymore. Human trafficking is a human rights problem, and it especially affects women. So we're going to talk about it every Tuesday, and we're here with the one and only Abogada Lauren, who is our resident expert on trafficking, who's going to lead us in a conversation today to really understand more about how trafficking is an everyday occurrence. And Sara, gracias in advance. I'll let you kind of host us.
Hola a todos, estamos aquí con la abogada Hillary y la abogada Lauren. Este va a ser un programa recurrente. Vamos a hacer los martes de tráfico, solamente porque el mes de la concientización sobre el tráfico se haya terminado. No quiere decir que el problema del tráfico se haya ido. Es un problema latente, es un problema de todos los días, es un problema que tristemente afecta a más mujeres. Entonces aquí en Nueva Frontera vamos a continuar hablando del tema. El día de hoy tenemos a la abogada Lauren, que es nuestra experta. Yo voy a estar traduciendo para todos aquellos que hablan español y tienen interés en este tema. Y bueno, vamos a empezar con la abogada Lauren.
Okay.
Hi, everyone.
Yeah. And Lauren, I don't know if you want to break out some of your Spanish with me today. Hola, Maria Angulo, our fan numero uno. She is here with us right now. But yes, hello to everyone.
Hola, María, ¿cómo está? Pues yo me siento más cómoda en inglés, así que yo voy a hablar más en inglés. Pero como la abogada Hillary dijo, el trato humano, eso pasa a mucha gente, pero no quiero decir sobre todos, a las mujeres, pero eso pasa mucho a las mujeres o con las mujeres. So voy a hablar de una historia hoy que se trata de una mujer. So I said that Lawyer Hillary said, trafficking happens to everyone, but it especially happens to women. So today I'd like to talk about a story that concerns a woman. We'll change her name. We'll call her Julieta. She came to the US, like a lot of people, for a better life, nothing to do with trafficking. And then she was told that she could get a job somewhere. So she went to the job, started working there. It was a cleaning company that had different locations. And at first it was okay. But then she noticed that, people were making her work more and more, and she wasn't getting paid overtime. And suddenly it wasn't enough to work 5 days a week. They wanted her to work 7 days a week. And then the checks started bouncing. And when she would ask them, where are my checks? Like, the checks aren't, they're bouncing. I'm not getting the money that you told me I was going to be paid. They would start threatening to deport her. One of her coworkers actually tried to leave, and he said, this is crazy. Like, I'm not going to work here anymore because you're not paying me. The checks are bad. And he was physically assaulted. So when she saw that, she became even more scared to leave. So she kept on working, under the threat of being deported. And then once one of the managers told her, look, I side with you. I think that what's going on is horrible. I think that you should stand up for yourself. You shouldn't have to work 7 days a week. You shouldn't have to work these long hours. And so she tried to put her foot down, and she's like, okay, I'm not going to work Sundays.
Lauren, I want to leave it on a cliffhanger here for all of us English speakers. Sarah, can you jump in for us?
I'm so sorry.
Sí.
It's okay.
La abogada Lauren nos va a compartir un caso el día de hoy. Vamos a cambiar su nombre por motivos de confidencialidad. La vamos a llamar Julieta. Julieta vino a este país cuando era muy joven, con el sueño de mejorar, como lo tienen todos. Nada que ver con el tráfico. Ella le dijeron que podía conseguir un trabajo. Y ella empezó a trabajar en esta compañía de limpieza que tenía muchas locaciones, era una compañía grande. Entonces ella empezó a trabajar y al principio todo estaba bien. Trabajaba las horas, le pagaban bien, todo estaba correcto. Sin embargo, conforme empezó a pasar el tiempo, ella se dio cuenta que le hacían trabajar un poquito más, le hacían trabajar un día más, horas más. no le pagaban sus horas extra, sus cheques empezaban a ser rebotados, y varias cosas empezaron a suceder. Y cuando ella preguntaba, ella era amenazada con que iban a reportarla a ICE, a Inmigración. Entonces, tanto ella como un compañero empezaron a preguntarse sobre esto. Su compañero quiso dejar la empresa y resultó herido en esta situación. Y uno de sus managers le dijo que ella tenía razón, que debía defenderse, que él estaba de acuerdo, que no debería trabajar ni 7 horas ni tantas horas y que debía ser pagada correctamente. Entonces tenemos una situación que se ve como a muchos compañeros inmigrantes. Entonces esto es lo que estaba pasando con Julieta.
What an amazing memory you have.
I know, it really is amazing.
So amazing. But yeah, so, she tried to stand up for herself. So she said, I'm not going to work on Sundays anymore. Enough is enough. I'll work 6 days, but not 7, especially because they weren't paying her overtime. They weren't paying her 7 days a week. So her employers, they found out where she lived and they started coming to her house and they started making her come to work. So I'll let you translate that.
Sí, bueno, entonces Julieta se encontraba muy inconforme, dijo que se iba a defender y empezó a decir no a trabajar a los domingos. Voy a trabajar de lunes a sábado, pero voy a descansar los domingos. Entonces empezó a hacer esto. Sin embargo, sus empleadores empezaron a presionarla al grado de que se presentaban en su casa y la llevaban al trabajo. O sea, la estaban prácticamente obligando a trabajar los domingos. Y además no se lo pagaban. Entonces, todo esto era prácticamente trabajo gratis.
Exactly. And then they started calling her phone all the time, like, where are you? Where are you? Wanted her to work even later because, they were losing employees because they were such mean people. And so Julieta started suffering from depression. She almost had a nervous breakdown. And then finally, she worked up the nerve to escape, and she escaped. Someone told her that they could live with her because part of the reason Julieta was scared to escape was because they knew where she lived. And they told her, if you don't come into work, I will call ICE. ICE will know where you live. And so she felt trapped. But one day she finally, she found someone to house her and she escaped. She left and she never looked back.
Sí, esta presión continuó, sus empleadores sabían dónde vivía ella, además de eso tenían su número celular, la llamaban, ¿dónde estás? ¿Cuándo vas a venir? Y entonces Julieta empezó a sentir la presión y el estrés, ella estaba cansada todo el tiempo, estuvo a punto de un colapso nervioso y bueno, una de las razones por las que ella sentía que no podía escapar era porque sus empleadores tenían su información, incluida su dirección, y amenazaban con hablarle a ICE. Le decían cosas como, Inmigración va a saber dónde vives, sabe tu dirección, te van a encontrar. Y era una de las razones por las que ella tenía miedo de dejar ese trabajo. Eventualmente encontró a alguien que le ofreció vivienda y es así como ella juntó el coraje para escapar de esa situación. Entonces, toda esta información personal que ellos tenían estaba siendo usada en su contra y ella, queremos que entiendan que así se puede ver una situación de tráfico. No siempre es la esclavitud o los grilletes o las cadenas. A veces es tan simple como que alguien sepa información personal tuya y la use en tu contra.
So Lauren, I have a question. So she escaped, thank God. And did she get a T visa and eventually her residency?
She did. She did escape and she did get a T visa. And what's interesting too is that she waited several years because, like many people, she didn't think she qualified. Like Sara was saying, there were no chains attached to her. She wasn't locked in a room. She didn't have handcuffs on. There were no chains. So she didn't think that she qualified. So she for many years, she didn't seek help. And then one day she finally did. And yes, her case was approved. And now she's a free woman with permanent residency, a work permit, and so.
Yeah, absolutely amazing. Sarah, go ahead before I jump in here, because this part is like always what moves me so much. Go ahead.
La abogada le pregunta a la abogada Lauren si gracias a esta situación Julieta pudo obtener su visa T y su residencia, y la abogada Lauren le dice que sí, que a pesar de que Julieta esperó muchos años, porque como mucha gente no sabía que calificaba, ya mencionamos que bueno, no había cadenas, no había no estaba ella encerrada en un cuarto, no había todos estos factores que a veces creemos que tienen que ver con el tráfico. Aún así, ella encontró el valor de buscar ayuda, la pidió y el día de hoy tiene su visa T, su residencia, su número de seguridad social, y es una mujer libre después de haber pasado por esta situación tan terrible.
So for me, the thing that always comes up is it's one thing for an immigrant to not know immigration law, and it's a whole other thing when something you and I have both seen is that on some level, many immigration lawyers don't know the extent and the reach of U.S. immigration law, which is one of the reasons we only practice very specific types of immigration law, because it's really complicated and it's really, it is, what is the phrase? The road is wide and the valley is deep, in immigration law. So dabbling in immigration law, I think, is a recipe for disaster, because then you meet people who, like Julieta in your story, in your example of a real life trafficking victim. She thought that she probably talked to neighbors, probably talked to friends. She hadn't reported this to the police, so she probably didn't think that she qualified for anything. But that is not a necessary component to the T visa.
Exactly. Which is why the T visa is so amazing, because as we know with the U visa, you have to have a police report, but with the T visa, luckily you don't. Yeah. So that opens the door for a lot of people.
Yeah. Sí, la abogada Hillary nos explica que una cosa es que uno como inmigrante no conozca la ley de inmigración, no tiene por qué. Sin embargo, esto también es parte del problema, que cuando los abogados no se imaginan lo compleja, lo grande, lo profunda que es la ley de inmigración. Es por eso que aquí en Nueva Frontera solamente ofrecemos ciertos casos. Eso nos permite ser expertos para ayudar mejor a las personas, ¿no? Puede ser que Julieta hablara con vecinos, con amigos, incluso con otros abogados que no entendían lo maravilloso de la visa T, que es, como menciona Lauren, el beneficio de no necesitar un reporte de policía a comparación de la visa U. Entonces, es por eso que es tan importante que consultemos con un experto en nuestro caso, porque ese experto, incluso en esa parte de la ley de inmigración, nos va a poder decir si calificamos o no sin temor a equivocarse. Y estos casos que no son tan fáciles, no hay violencia, no hay ataque, pero sí hay una característica de tráfico, las vamos a poder identificar y vamos a poder ayudar a más personas.
Yeah, I think that what you were saying was, I'm actually not sure exactly, Sarah. So I don't want to make any assumptions, but one way or the other, I want to reiterate. And Lauren, you can correct me if I'm wrong in your experience, but rarely does human trafficking look like what we see in the movies or what we see on 60 Minutes or what we read about an Underground Railroad, where there are these big rings like that. Those are much more rare. The more common occurrences are what you're describing, where there's no physical violence, there's no bondage, but it is implied bondage through control, oftentimes through working off a debt. So a smuggler brought you to the United States, so you're going to work this off, but it's at an interest rate that you can never work off, which is illegal in the United States to even have that type of debt bondage. But yet we have it here because this is already someone who's doing something that's illegal. To be smuggled into the United States is an illegal act. So it's not like for me, it's a lot like when I was representing people in Las Vegas, where prostitution is very common. It's legal in the state of Nevada in a specific area in Pahrump. So you have people who are you have people who are doing something that in parts of Nevada are illegal. Let's say prostitution, sex work is illegal. So then when you are raped while going through while being a sex worker, it's almost like you can't report it because you were already engaging in something illegal. Or a simpler way of describing it would be people who are selling drugs and ought not be selling drugs, but then they are held at knife point. So do I report myself? I was held at knife point and now I'm scared of this person, but I also incriminate myself that I was doing something illegal. So you have all these different layers that make immigrants very vulnerable when they're simply trying to work, is really, for me, what is a common symptom. And so Bianca had asked this question, like, what do I do? And I want to get to that in a second. And Lauren, I want you to pipe in. And Sarah, you know, I've gone to church here, so you'll have a lot to translate, but thank you so much.
Sí, la abogada nos reitera cómo en la historia de Julieta no había ningún tipo de componente físico, no había golpes, no había cortaduras, no había un arma para amenazarle. Sin embargo, la atadura que ellos estaban aplicando sobre ella era con su paz, con el lugar donde vivía, con su bienestar. Y ese es el tipo de tráfico que sí vemos, no es como el que vemos en las películas, Jeffrey Epstein, los círculos de prostitución, todo eso sí sucede, pero es menos raro, es un poco ya otro tipo de situaciones. Aquí lo que vemos con los inmigrantes es que, por ejemplo, un coyote que te trajo a los Estados Unidos y que ahora quiere que pagues esa deuda trabajando a un interés que nunca vas a poder pagar. Eso es ilegal, pero es aquí donde los inmigrantes se ven más vulnerables, ya que, bueno, esta persona me trajo a los Estados Unidos, me ayudó a hacer algo que no está bien y ahora me está amenazando, me está forzando a trabajar, hay alguna situación que no es legal ahí, pero yo me siento culpable, ¿no? Entonces, esto es lo que tenemos que desmitificar cuando la abogada representaba personas en Las Vegas, donde en ciertas partes la prostitución es permitida. Normalmente se encontraba con estos casos donde si yo practico la prostitución fuera de donde es permitido, y me encuentro en una situación donde me vulneran, entonces me incrimino al denunciarla, pero esto no es así, tenemos que quitar esto del medio porque un crimen es un crimen y existen este tipo de alivios de inmigración que nos van a ayudar. Entonces, es aquí donde tenemos que prestar especial atención y separar lo que creemos que es tráfico y cómo lo observa la ley y cómo lo va a poder identificar un abogado de inmigración experto, como lo somos aquí en Nueva Frontera.
Yeah, Lauren, kind of what are those accurate markers for what you see as a common thread in trafficking?
Definitely, definitely. Like, it's interesting, but so many of the clients that I talk to, they tell me, like, I'm embarrassed. I'm so sorry. I don't know why I didn't leave. I don't know why I stayed, but I can't explain, like, the hold he had over me, or she had over me. I can't explain why I was so scared. And then they'll tell me, oh yeah, he was starving me, or she was not letting me eat, or I was working these late, these crazy hours, these long hours. I was working 7 days a week. My body was breaking down, but I don't know why I didn't leave. And I'm just like, it's clear, like, it's just the patterns are so similar. Like, they break the person down psychologically and often physically, and then they have nothing left to leave with. I mean, they're in survival mode, and barely that. And like you said, there's so much guilt, there's so much self-blame, and there's so much shame. And I'm not even talking about sexual abuse. I'm talking about like a lot of the labor cases that I've seen. They're so embarrassed they didn't leave because they're just like, I don't understand how I could have felt this vulnerable or this trapped. Why didn't I just walk out? But there's a steady buildup of just psychological abuse that's kind of imprisoned them.
Sí, la abogada le pregunta a la abogada Lauren si hay algún tipo de patrón, si esto es lo correcto de identificar, y la abogada Lauren le dicen que sí, que en muchos de los casos, no solo de abuso sexual, sino también de tráfico de trabajo, a trabajo forzado, Hay muchos aspectos y uno de ellos o uno de los más comunes que ella ve en sus casos pues es como la culpa, la vergüenza, la tortura psicológica de decir, ¿por qué no me fui? ¿Por qué no salí de ahí? ¿Por qué no simplemente me cambié de casa? Sin embargo, queremos decirle a las personas que nos ven que esto no es su culpa. Hay toda una maquinaria detrás sobre cómo una persona, un traficante abusa de las personas. Muchas veces hay ataques psicológicos, a veces hay ataques físicos y toman a esta persona hasta un punto en el que pueden manipularla. La persona está en método de supervivencia y es sino hasta después que la persona puede hablar de esto, puede buscar ayuda. Lo importante es que esta información llegue a las personas, si tú conoces a alguien, si lo platiquen y que siempre puede estar al alcance de todos los migrantes.
See, so I'm reading this book called The Locust Effect, and it talks really about how poverty is the source of all the problems in the world. And one of them is that poverty uniquely imprisons women because we are much more vulnerable. The female is so much more vulnerable in life, smaller built, rapeable, and hard worker, etc. One of the ways that this book has described the justice system, and if we don't have justice, then the locust takes everything, can eat everything. And that's what trafficking really, if we don't have a law enforcement, the justice system is necessary for the law enforcement system is necessary for justice to work. And so many people who come from developing countries like Mexico or like Thailand or, you name it, Russia, if you don't have a police force that is actually safe for you to go to and who will investigate crimes, then you stay in fear. And we have so many people who come to the United States, they take jobs right away when they get them because they want to work, they want to be able to provide for themselves. And oftentimes they've come with children. They were vulnerable at home. And so that's why they came to the United States to make a better life. And then they get here and the threat of being deported is so significant and so real. And it is the greatest fear that they live in that fear and they are afraid to report it to law enforcement because the law enforcement at home wouldn't protect them. And we had that here when Arpaio was sheriff, and Maria has mentioned that and how it was literally hell on earth. And that is when all the hair on my body is standing up right now because I know it's the truth. When we have a law enforcement that is also our immigration enforcement, this is when we have huge problems and we make bigger problems than we solve. And it shows up in trafficking and it shows up in substantiating the fear that people have. We become a country that has no justice system because our police force becomes corrupted with these problems and they're used against the victim themselves. So, Lauren, that's incredible insight. And it really is so true because it ties into what happens globally in the conversation about trafficking, and it 100% shows up here. And I'm fired up about it because we can stop this. And that's the point I want to turn to next. And Lauren, I would love for your thoughts on how brothers and sisters in the Hispanic community especially can help each other. And I've got my 2 cents to add. And of course, I'm coming from being a non-Hispanic, I want to be able to help too. And so people who are not Hispanic can help the immigrant community because of course the immigrant community isn't just Hispanic.
Sara, if you want to translate or
yeah, of course.
There's some preaching that just happened. Sorry, but thank you.
La abogada está leyendo un libro que habla sobre cómo la pobreza es pues básicamente el punto de partida de muchos problemas. Uno de ellos, bueno, nosotros lo vemos reflejado en el tráfico. Habla de cómo las mujeres, bueno, están en una posición un poco más vulnerables desde su constitución hasta su física, hasta sus personalidades. Cómo esto, pues obviamente perpetúa estos problemas, ¿no? Habla como a los inmigrantes de algunos países, puede ser México, Tailandia, Rusia, donde la policía o el gobierno no tiene una respuesta positiva para ellos. Bueno, ellos vienen a este país a trabajar por un mejor futuro y traen ese miedo con ellos. Entonces llegan a este país, se ponen a trabajar y luego son víctimas de estas situaciones. Sin embargo, como que traen con ellos ese miedo de que si van a las autoridades no los van a ayudar. Y es uno de los problemas que al día de hoy se tiene en los Estados Unidos. La misma autoridad que ejerce justicia para ellos es la misma que ejerce las leyes de inmigración. Y entonces tenemos, como diríamos en español, juez y parte, y se crean más grandes problemas. Tenemos inmigrantes que son víctimas de estos crímenes, paralizados por el miedo a ser deportados. ¿Por qué? Porque obviamente salieron de sus países de origen con miedo. Entonces vienen a este país, traen esos miedos y luego se encuentran con que es la misma autoridad la que no les puede dar justicia y al mismo tiempo los quiere deportar. Entonces, es aquí donde nosotros tenemos que participar como una comunidad. La comunidad migrante no es solo de hispanos, sin embargo, hay una pregunta en los comentarios y la abogada quiere que Lauren nos platique un poquito sobre cómo personas como ella, que no pertenecen a la comunidad ni hispana ni migrante, pueden ayudar, porque solo así, solo con la ayuda comunitaria es que vamos a poder proteger a este sector de la población que es parte de este país, pero que puede ser más vulnerable.
Exactly. No, exactly. And I think that's a great question. Almost every case that I've seen, it's been someone else from their same community, whether it be a cousin, a neighbor, a coworker, that's been like, "You're not a slave. You can escape. I will come and I will get you. I will pick you up. I will house you. I will pick you, I will carry you out. It is okay." Like one of our clients, she told me that one of her sisters came to visit her from Mexico, and she was like, "How is this happening to you? How are you living through this? I've known you my whole life. Like, how are you? I don't understand. This person is a psychopath. How are you living with, this?" And she said, it broke something in her. And she's like, "Oh my God, like the trance was broken." And she's like, "But I can't leave. I can't leave." And her sister was like, "I am taking you out. We don't have money. I don't care. We are leaving right now. I'm taking you to the hotel. We will figure it out. But you are not staying here a second longer." And like I said, we've got so many other clients the same way, like a cousin or a friend or someone has been like, "No, enough is enough. I am getting you out. I am driving you away." And then the spell's broken.
Sí, la abogada nos cuenta, Lauren nos cuenta cómo es en la mayoría de los casos de tráfico, cómo es esa comunidad alrededor de la persona la que logra ayudarle a salir, un primo, la hermana, un amigo que les dice esto no está bien, esto no es correcto, y rompen de alguna manera el trance en el que se sienten. La abogada cuenta un ejemplo de una de nuestras clientas que fue su hermana quien le ayudó a salir de esto. Su hermana vino a visitarla desde México y ya con esa mirada de afuera que le preguntó, ¿por qué está sucediendo esto? Esto no está bien, esa persona es un psicópata, tenemos que huir, vámonos al hotel, no tenemos nada, pero lo vamos a solucionar juntos. Y es normalmente una persona de nuestra comunidad quien rompe esos ciclos, nos ayuda con dinero, con casa, con yo te voy a ayudar a salir de aquí, nos da ese apoyo que necesita y estos ciclos de abuso, de tráfico, de violencia son rotos gracias a la comunidad.
Yeah.
It's so interesting. Again and again, they tell me, someone told me, "You're not a slave. You're not a slave. Tú vales más. Like, you're worth something. You're worth." And then suddenly it's broken.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. There's a song that I've been listening to, and it's called "No Longer a Slave." And the song just goes over and over and over how I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. And it's just this, like, it's a praise and worship song, like from a church setting. I think it's Bethel Church. But man, isn't that so true? Because fear is the captor, and it shows up in all these different, in these different characters, the different faces of what fear is. But really it's just encouraging people, and with slavery, when you are living as a slave to fear, and we all live as slaves to fear on some level, like in a proverbial sense or in a figurative sense, or in many different types of ways. But there are people who are living in fear for very, very real reasons. and like very real fear. And Bianca had asked, what do I do? My encouragement would be is every single time you talk to someone who you feel like has a connection point to the immigrant community, to encourage them to stop pretending they're immigration lawyers. Because when we pretend we know what is going on and we only know a little bit, we are dangerous. We think that we're helping people, but we are leaving them in those prisons. When we don't know what we're talking about, and when we talk to our cousin and we talk to our friend at church and we say, oh, I've heard that this doesn't work, I'm really sorry. We put another stake in the wall. We put another pole in the prison that they are living in. And it's false information. It's another type of fear because they think that it won't work for them. And Bianca, I know that you're not out doing that, but when we talk to our brothers and sisters, we have to know when to say, I think that there's hope for you. I don't know where it's going to come from. I don't know what it's going to look like, but I have hope for you. You should talk to, and man, I think you should talk to Abogada Lauren anytime that you feel like you've got this type of thing going on. She's who I talk to about this stuff. You have to talk to someone who's actually going to stop, roll up their sleeves and figure out what's going on. And man, I hope that you're not a victim of trafficking. I hope that you're not, because that is so awful that you've had to live through that experience. But wouldn't it be better to be safe rather than sorry? Wouldn't it be better to know rather than to guess? Wouldn't it be better to be absolutely sure rather than make an assumption that's against yourself? Don't count yourself out. And as a person who has status, when you see people, don't be the in jail, we would call you the jailhouse lawyer. Don't be the neighborhood abogada or abogado, because you're part of the problem if that's what you do. So my challenge would be refer people to the expert in the room. And right now, that expert in the room is without a doubt Lauren.
Exacto. La abogada nos cuenta cómo ella está actualmente obsesionada con una canción que le gusta mucho, que habla sobre no ser ya esclavo del miedo. Esta es una canción de religión, sin embargo, para ella significa mucho y entiende cómo a muchos niveles todos somos esclavos de un poquito de miedo, a veces figurativo, a veces real, pero estas personas que sufren tráfico son presas del miedo, de un miedo real, de un peligro real. Entonces, su deseo es que las personas puedan encontrar una fuente de información confiable que les pueda ayudar con esto. Y su reto para las personas que se encuentran con estas situaciones y que no son parte de la comunidad es que no den un consejo, es que no pongan en peligro a estas personas, porque a veces es nuestro vecino, el amigo, el hermano, el cuñado el que nos pregunta, y hablar sobre lo que no entendemos es muy peligroso. Esto podría estar añadiendo estrés, temor a su vida, podríamos estar poniendo un barrote más a la reja que los tiene en prisión. Entonces, a veces lo más sensato de decir es, ¿sabes qué? No entiendo. Creo que podrías encontrar lo que estás buscando, pero creo que necesitas consultar a un experto. Entonces, esto es a nosotros lo que nos toca para ayudar a la comunidad, referir a las personas a quien puede saber cómo ayudarles y que encuentren la paz, que sepan verdaderamente si califican para esto. Y no es que deseamos que las personas se encuentren en una situación de tráfico, es algo horrible. Sin embargo, si lo estás, ¿no sería mejor saber, no sería mejor que un experto te dijera cómo te puede ayudar? Entonces, ese es el reto para las personas que nos están viendo. Sabemos que Blanca no está haciendo eso, sin embargo, si alguna vez nos encontramos con esta situación, lo mejor es apoyar a estas personas a encontrar a la persona que les va a decir sí o no, o que les va a orientar. En este caso, para nosotros es la abogada Lauren. Y pues es nuestra recomendación para todas las personas que quieren ayudar a la comunidad migrante.
Yeah, for sure. Next week we'll be back with more. This is such a topic that if I spend the rest of my life talking about it, it won't be enough time. And it's so great to be in a room with women and folks. I've seen lots of folks who've been watching throughout this, so I know that you're interested in it too. Next week, Lauren, can we talk about trafficking in the home, where it's from a spouse or a family member? Because I think that is probably the most alarming, shocking, and common, that just goes undiagnosed. And I would love for you to lead us in a conversation about that if you're open to it.
Definitely. My pleasure.
Ok, bueno, todas las personas que nos están viendo, muchísimas gracias. Sabemos que este tema es de interés y la abogada dice que si pudiera pasar el resto de su vida hablando de esto, sería poco tiempo. En la próxima semana vamos a estar revisando el tema del tráfico en casa. Es un tema complejo, es un tema difícil, es un tema que normalmente no tiene un diagnóstico, pero estaremos tratando de proveerles de esta información para que si conocen a alguien o si tú que nos estás viendo pudieras estar en esta situación, encuentres la ayuda que estás buscando y que mereces.
Okay. Gracias, ladies. And good job, Sarah, as always. And I will see you all next week for more Trafficking Tuesday during your lunch hour.
Gracias a todos, gracias a la abogada Lauren, a todos los que nos ven y nos veremos la próxima semana en Martes de Tráfico.
Adiós.
Yes.